Good morning. It's February 25th. I'd like to finish up my history about black history. Um, what is black? Black is an adjective. Adjective is something that describes something. So when you're talking about black, it can only could just describe you. So when they talk about the noun part, it's talking about a person, place, or thing, which is talking about property, which is denoting somebody owns you. So you don't want to be a noun part of the black. You want to be an adjective, which describes somebody. So when you see the red, you know that red means um, that it's bad. Stop. The adjective is the great part of it, which you want to be. You if you it, but uh, I don't think you want to be black, but the adjective is what describes you. So that's what we're breaking down right now. It's also a color, which I'm gonna get into in just a second. It's a race, which I haven't read, which is bad because that was schemed up by somebody. And so um, Carl Linnaeus, Francos Benier, things of that nature, they came up with race. And so that's where you get black, white, green, blue, all these things of that nature. Also under black in the slang definition, which you know a slang definition would be one, two, three, four, five. But real studies are done through etymology, which is in the brackets. But this is a slang definition. Uh, it's it means to be darkened by clouds, sullen, wicked, horrible, black crime, disastrous. Some of the synonyms of black: threatening, menacing, unpromising, dreadful, disgraceful, satanic, unscrupulous, unclean, evil. Now, why is this relevant? Why am I putting this in a slide about black history? This is very important because we're going to come back to these and many other things that have to do with the real black history and why this is relevant. So keep this in mind that um, these are relevant to what black is, but I wanted to touch on that because we have black history and we want to celebrate our culture, but we don't know what the actual culture is. And so I want to understand and get people to understand what the real culture of black is and who owns it. If black is a color, what is color? We'll go to the Black's Law Dictionary for the definition of color. Color is an appearance, a semblance, a simulacrum. When you look up the etymology for that all means the same thing, as distinguished from what is real. That means that black, colored, anything that has a color to it is it's not real, and it's fake. A prima facie, believed to be true until disproved by evidence. That's very important. So that's what I'm trying to do tonight is give you guys some uh, lawful evidence to prove that you're not black and restore your title. It's a deceptive appearance, concealing a lack of reality. So that's very important. So when we're saying that we're black and we're colored and stuff, we have to look this stuff up and see what it means lawfully, you know. So this what it means lawfully. So I don't think people want to keep calling themselves black and colored and things like that. And look for the real remedy to what's going on. And I've kind of shared these things before. The remedy more and finding your nationality, because this is not a nationality, and neither is white. So they can't. White is an adjective. It describes somebody. So they can't be. Uh, you can't be white or black. You know, that's something that describes you. So when we're doing with colored, it has to do with the colored person, the colored race, all races except white. So white is not a color. It's its own separate thing. and that's like a whole nother lecture. And I'm gonna break a little bit of that down at the end of this, but that's very important that you understand that white is not hooked on to that colored thing. So when you're talking about why aren't they part of this colored scheme, no, it's because they traded places with us and took on that title and made us black and negro and things of that nature. So we got to understand that, and we're going to find out here in a second. So it's also a colored man. It is designated it is to designate negroes or persons of African race. Now in my previous lecture, I stated what an African is, so you guys got to look that up and do your due diligence on that. It has been held that there is no legal technical significance to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know. So that means anybody claiming to be African, colored, Negro, black, which is a color, Negro, which is a color, which is the Spanish way of saying black. So we all need to understand that these are all terms, and when you use these things, that's signifying that you have no standing in law. So when you go to court, this is why they kill people in the street. This is why they killed Trayvon Martin. This is and they get away with it. Trayvon Martin, Samir Rice, all these people, anybody you can name. We get outraged, but this is why they're doing it, and we gotta know why they're doing it. The regular definition, etymology of color is to conceal, cover, and hide. And that's very important because when we go back to thesaurus is the saurus. It's two different words. And so saurus is the lizard, which means to hide. So when we go back to what I was talking about in the first couple slides or the first couple videos, it means to hide. And so color and thesaurus and holy are all the same words. Holy means to hide too. So all these words to conceal and cover. So when you get into etymology, all these words entangle and or you'll find that 3 or 4 words all mean the same thing. So color, thesaurus, and holy are all the same word, basically. The etymology of black. It started about 410 A.D. and then the Saxons stopped using it in 1066, and then the Danish picked it back up in 1625. But it means to be wan, livid, bleak, shallow, to bleach. And what I did was take the words that describe black in their etymology, and then I break the etymology of those words down. So what I got out of wan is deficient, to fail, pale, deficient in color, akin to veil, wake, weak, having a sickly hue. So when we're talking about being black, and people talk about being black, are you really black? Sickly hue, pale, bleached. So we gotta break these words down. You know, we have a very great culture, and we want the best, but we have to study this stuff. So bleak is my favorite, and I could have dropped a lot of stuff out of bleak, but it means pale, wan, nigger. So nigger is very important. We gotta understand that they are the niggers, so they just turned it on us, and we got to understand that this is the etymology of black, and this is where they get nigger and call us nigger. They just did a trading places. They whooped our ass. They did all kind of situations like that, floggings, hangings, rackings, all these different things to turn this around. And so bleak is very important. It's also Blake too, because you can interchange it through Striffle Symbolia, which you can change the BLAKE and make it Blake, and that's the same word. and bleach is the same word as that, to be pale or wan. So and then when you go into pale, it's fallow, um, failing, it's withering. They're also a spade. And then when you get into withering, it talks about to fade, to lose native freshness. That means they have no native freshness. Anywhere they go, they don't have no native freshness. They're living off of our freshness. So we got to understand that. To waste, to pine away, to shrink, wrinkle or decay, to become dry. So people have to really look and search. Am I black? Is this, does this apply to me? Etymology. This is what I'm using. Remember, we go back to the hand. The hand is what it is in you can only use one thing. The hand is what it is, and you can't use anything else to describe it. So when I'm talking about black and etymology, these all words apply to it. And so we have to understand who the real niggers is, who the real pale people are, who the real blacks are, and things like that. The Saxons, the English, the Danish, the Dutch, um, things of that nature. So we have to understand, and I'm going to break that down a little bit more here. The colonizers and their various names. The colony. And why this is important is because these words go back to what I was just talking about. Most of them have etymology that links them back to the words that I was just talking about. So the colony, or another name for them was the colony, a member or a limb. It's a cultivator, a group or a member under one flag or standards. Home country, that means that they're not from here, but they go around the world and taking stuff, even though they don't have, England would be their home base. That's not really theirs either. So we have to understand that the colony is very important. The company, the Virginia Company, is it breaks down to tilt, which is also a cultivator, which is the etymology of what a cultivator is. So a company is a colony, which is a cologne. So these are all the same words, and we need to treat them as such. They're a mess, a group of men under one flag or standards. There we go again. So they're linked up, and so we need to pay attention. Uh, the Puritans, or the pure, uh, to separate, free, clear, or drive off. And so that's what they're trying to do when they come to somebody's land. They're trying to come and separate and free and clear and drive you off. The Pilgrims, this breaks down to a wanderer, which is a wan, which we already looked at as pale and livid and all those things. So a pilgrim is talking about, they're already talking about they're the real blacks, and that they're livid and don't have a lot of time on this earth, and they're not supposed to be here. I'm just speaking real facts. A Pellynig, which breaks down to be a nicker, which is a nick, which is a nick, which is a nigger, which is all one word. And when we talk about the word clipper, that's the same word too. It means to steal. So when we talk about a nigger, that's another etymology. Or a nick is a thief. So we got to understand that the pilgrims, the wanderers, are thieves, because they're calling themselves a Pellynig. And so a Pellynig is a nigger, which is a thief. So the cultivators, which breaks down, you can break that word down, and it's just cult. That means to tilt or till, to dwell, or manseer, which breaks down to be a bastard. So that means they don't have any real people, and they don't have no real land. I'm just saying, because we get discouraged around this month. We get discouraged because we only have, this little month. But if we only knew. So a husbandry, or a husband, and that's very important. So for women that want to get married and stuff, you guys got to look this word up, and what's associated with this in the Black's Law Dictionary is very important. But anyways, it's a farmer, it's a clown. These are this is the etymology of what it is. So a husband is a clown, it's a bore, And so that's where we get the word neighbor from. So when we talk about this, when it's a cultivator, there's somebody that's coming to steal your land. Um, uh, uh, they're bastards. They dwell in places that they're not supposed to be at. So we got to understand this is not their land, and we know that, but we got to understand where this is coming from, and how they're trading places through these special words, and that's very important because they're hidden through these used on you to believe that you're something else, and then we get disparaged, and that's how they bring us down. And so when we're talking about culture and vulture, we have taken over their culture. And so when I thought about culture vulturing, and we always talk about they're stealing our culture and things like that. Yes they are, but we also are still in their culture, calling ourselves black and still in their vulturous ways, which is a person that's rapacious, a predator, a profiting nature. So we got to understand that we are taking on their titles because we haven't looked for our treasure. We haven't looked for our gold. We haven't looked for our thesaurus, our hidden things where they took from us. This is how we get our old family's land back, our ancestors' land back. This is how we get anything back. It's through these special words, through arguments that I talked about previously. So rape, rapacious is to take by force, plunder, greedy, ravenous, and then see voracious. But I'm going to break down rape because that's very important. That's a key one because you get rap out of there and you get rapture. And so when I talk to my daughter all the time about rap music, and I have to stop listening to rap music sometimes because this is what it is. It's rape music and it's the rapture. And it means to seize, to take possession, to grasp suddenly and forcefully with the mind, and to have a sudden, overwhelming effect on, to vest ownership of a feudal property, to coerce or fuse with another. That's very important. That's where they're taking over. They took where we were kind and things like that. Now we're talking about fuck your bitch, uh, take your mom, or rape, kill, or whatever, or plunder. So we got to remember that this is their culture. That rap music and all that stuff, that's why they want to push this on us, because they understand that's how they're going to kill us, because we don't know special words and we don't know about language, and they don't know rap means to seize and to take over your mind, and bad things. And voracious means to swallow, to devour. So what they're trying to do is swallow and devour us through our mind using rap music, and uh, where we don't respect our parents, and talk bad about each other, and I don't care about you and things like that. So we got to understand this is a whole thing. When we think about just how they beat us and stuff, we have to understand this is a word game, and they switched it, and put us in these predicaments where we are the rapists. And when we say, oh, I'm a rapper, yeah, I'm trying to seize, I'm trying to take possession of your mind. That's not good. And if you're not doing it in a positive nature and trying to uplift your people, you shouldn't be talking about you wanting to be a rapper. So we need to understand this. A pilgrim. This is the big breakdown of pilgrim. This is the etymology of pilgrim. It's a wanderer. It's a traveler, particularly one that travels to a distance from his own country to visit a holy place. So when they come travel over here, they're going to a holy place. So we have to understand that they're coming over here to a holy and secret place. When they went to Africa, a holy and secret place. When they went to Egypt, a holy and secret place. So you got to understand that these places are there, and this is a holy place. It's a concealed place. It's a hidden place that they weren't supposed to come to. So we got to understand that when we talk about holy, sealed, and hide. And so this is very important right here. one that has only temporary residence on the earth. This is what comes out the Bible, Hebrews 11:13 for a reference. I didn't put it up there, but if you want to look it up yourself, this is what I'm saying, that they don't have residency on this earth, and even the scriptures say so. People that read scripture and deep into that, look it up and see what it says about that. And it just also means to wander into or ramble. So what's important right here is where they took over the possession of being a title that we used, and was only for us, that meant sovereignty, and only could describe you. You can't be a white person. That's something that describes you. So you only could be a Moor. You only could be, if you're European, you only could be a Dutch. You only could be a French, things of this nature. Back to the pedigree of your ancient forefathers and things like that. So when you talk about free white persons, I'm talking about somebody that I'm talking about the act that they use to switch over, using special words to gain our sovereignty, and they become white. So a free white person referred to in the Naturalization Act, and that the breakdown of the Naturalization Act means to be born, and this is the Black's Law Dictionary, to be born, and when you're born, you're delivered. So when you that goes back to church. I'm delivered. So when you say you're delivered, you're a resident, or you're residing, which breaks down to be a thing, or it, or black or colored. So when you go back to saying you're a resident, or you're born, or you're naturalized, that goes back to being black and colored, and that has no standing in law. So we have to understand that. So that's where they flipped it around and pushed the black and color agenda, and turned themselves white, and took their sovereignty away from their main country. So if they ever go back there, they can't be sovereigns there. That's why they push in the agenda that you be black and colored. Because if they don't push that agenda, then they have to go home and lose their sovereignty. So you have to understand this, that this is a whole game, and they will try any means necessary to get this out. And so this is very important that we pay attention to what's going on. So that's what's going on there. So any of the descendants, the red part, that's what I'm reading. Any one of their descendants is counted as white, and so we have to stop that. They're not white. They're European. So the green part is talking about who is included. So you would have to be intermixed. You would have to be mixed, or like my daughter is mixed. So she would be considered a free white person, but you can't be white, or you can't be European, excuse me, and or Caucasian and call yourself a white person. That it doesn't make sense in law. It doesn't make sense, and this is what I'm bringing out. And so that's what the green part is talking about. It's talking about Phoenicians and Latins and the real Greeks and Slavic descent. But you would have to be intermingled. You can't just be, because before we know as like Finns and Lapps and the Teutons and the Jews and things like that, they were all people that you would know as black or more. So we got to understand when they're talking about that, this goes back way before the Europeans took on these titles. So we got to understand that when they're talking about these people, they're talking about the original peoples that inhabited these lands. So the Phoenicians and all that, Sicilians, you have to be somebody that looks like mixed with melanin blood. So in the red, it's saying, again, it does not include the Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor mixed Indo-European race. So you cannot be talking about your Caucasian and you're white. You cannot claim it. And so you have to claim your correct race, or your correct pedigree, your correct nationality. So that's what I'm here talking about, setting straight because we think that they're the white people and the sovereigns around here, and they are not. And so we have to make sure when we're talking about black history that we get it straight, that they are the black people, and they are not sovereign, and they are resident, and they are delivered. So we have to understand that. So Assyrian at the bottom, it's in green, so that means it's good, so it's go. Assyrian of Asiatic birth or descent will not be able to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person. He can choose to give it up by calling himself black and colored and take himself out of the fold and become a naturalized citizen through the I-9, through the birth certificate, through all these things like that. That's where they take over. It's just not just, the Naturalization Act. They take over the license, they take over jurisdiction through church, they take over jurisdiction through uh, uh, property, anything like this, IDs, anything. They're taking over, they're trying to take over, so we have to understand where special words and things of this nature comes from and break it down. And so what I kind of want to do right now is kind of go over the Christian black codes, because I think these are very imperative for what they're doing and tried to do.